On the evening of November 18, 1987, police went to the mobile home of 29-year-old Russell Keith Dardeen and his family outside Ina, Illinois, after he had failed to show up for work that day. Upon entering the home, they found the bodies of his wife, 30-year-old Ruby Elaine Dardeen, and the couple's 2-year-old son Peter. Keith, who had been a reliable worker at the treatment plant, did not report for his shift. He had not called to inform his supervisor that he would be unable to come in, and calls to his house went unanswered all day. His supervisor called both of Keith's parents, who were divorced but still lived near each other in Mount Carmel. Neither of them knew what could have happened to their son. Don Darden, Keith's father, called the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and agreed to drive down to Ina with the house key and meet deputies at the home of his son and daughter-in-law, between Illinois Route 37 and the former Illinois Central Railroad tracks, now used by Union Pacific, just north of the Franklin County line. Inside they found the bodies of Elaine, Peter, and a newborn girl, all tucked into the same bed. Elaine had been bound and gagged with duct tape. Both had been beaten to death, apparently with a baseball bat found at the scene, a birthday gift young Peter had received from his father earlier that year. The killer even made an attempt to clean the crime scene, which shows that they were in no rush to leave. Elaine had been beaten so severely that she had gone into labor and delivered a girl, who soon met with the same fate as her mother and brother. Investigators stated that the mobile home back door had been left open and Keith was not present, nor was his car, a red 1981 Plymouth. There was no evidence of forced entry. A VCR and portable camera were in plain sight in the living room. Elsewhere in the house, equally accessible cash and jewelry remained. These facts argued against robbery as the motive. Elaine had not been raped or sexually assaulted. Investigators assumed that Keith had killed his wife and children and was still at large. A team of armed police went to his mother's house in Mount Carmel looking for him. The search ended late the following day, however, when a group of hunters found his body in a wheat field not far from the trailer, just south of the Franklin-Jefferson County line, near Rend Lake College. He had been shot 3 times, his penis was also severed. The Plymouth was found parked outside the police station in Benton, 11 miles south of the Darden home, its interior spattered with blood. A stack of papers with sports scores found in the house had led them to wonder whether Keith might have incurred gambling debts. However, Joanne Dardeen told police her son was so frugal that he raised money for his young son's college fund by reselling 50-cent cans of soda at work for a small profit. The Franklin County coroner did not believe the Dardeens were randomly chosen. "I believe it was a very personal, deliberate thing," he told the Post-Dispatch. A police expert on cults told the newspaper that the rumor that Satanists were responsible was untrue, since such groups often would mutilate bodies more extensively, harvest organs, and leave symbols and lit candles at the scene of their crimes. None of these indications had been found at the Dardeens' trailer. Police did allow, however, for the possibility that, while the Dardeens were chosen purposely, it may have been a case of mistaken identity by the killer or killers. Joanne Dardeen said later that she had considered other motives someone might have had for killing her son and his family. "I think someone wanted Keith to sell drugs and he refused," she said in 1997. "Or there's a possibility someone liked Elaine and she wouldn't accept his advances and he took out his rage on both of them. We just don't know." Inside the Dardeen home, investigators found a small amount of marijuana but found no evidence that they were drug dealers. In fact, Keith's mother, Joanne Dardeen, suggested that the marijuana may have belonged to the killer. The area the young family lived in had become increasingly violent, and the couple wanted to move somewhere safer for their children. Due to the increase of murders and rapes in the surrounding area, Keith was very protective of his family. On one occasion, he refused entry to the home to a young woman who asked to use their phone. Residents of Jefferson and Franklin counties were already fearful after more than 10 murders had taken place locally in the preceding 2 years. Many armed themselves, some suffered adverse psychological effects. Investigators ruled out many theories, most from illicit behavior such as drug dealing, marital infidelity or gambling. But the crime scene also ruled out rape or robbery, and in the absence of any clear cause or leads, the case remained unsolved. Serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells confessed to the murders and also confessed to as many as 70 murders, including the Dardeens. The confirmed body count reached 22. He was known to embellish his accounts, leaving authorities to wonder if he was telling the truth. Sal's story was that he met Keith Dardeen at a truck stop in Mount Vernon and drove him home to nearby Ina for a meal, and perhaps sex. Sells said that after the men left together later, he murdered Keith in anger over a sexual advance. Sells said he returned to the residence to eliminate the witnesses. Illinois detectives wanted to take Sells to Ina to test his familiarity with landmarks of the case. But he had been sentenced to death in Texas, where state law forbids removal of the condemned from death row.
How can you stand it?
81-year-old Joanne Dardeen walks in the shadow of her only son's brutal murder and the slaughter of his family.
I always say I've got through it because I've got God on my side.
Was there ever a time when you just want to take a break?
No. They told us in the beginning that we need to keep the story out there. We need to keep it going.
Ready?
Yeah.
Can you count?
The Dardeen murder sends shockwaves through Jefferson County. Details almost too sickening to describe.
I doubt seriously that the majority of the people in Mount Vernon even know who we are.
The best man at their wedding. And it makes me kind of sad to think about it.
I'm still numb to this day. I know I'm not the same person that I ever would have been.
They take me back to November 1987. The nightmare began with 29-year-old Keith not showing up for his Tuesday night shift at the local water treatment plant.
Keith's boss, he kept calling. That really scared me then.
An officer arrived at the family's trailer in Ina at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday.
Knocked, no one answered, so then he went to the back door and he turned the doorknob and he just took the flashlight, shined in there, and he seen them.
Elaine and Peter Dardeen looked to be carefully tucked into the family bed. In reality, someone had beaten them to death. Elaine, 7 to 8 months pregnant, gave birth during the assault. The baby girl they'd planned to name Casey, also dead of blunt force trauma.
And I just went to the floor. I just was overwhelmed.
It was gut-wrenching to think that, you know, Elaine and Pete was dead, and it was gut-wrenching not knowing where Keith was.
Where's your son? Where's your son? Well, I didn't know where he was, you know. I had no clue.
The first major break in the case came early the next day when someone found the Dardeens' red car. Nearly 24 hours after that horrifying discovery inside the trailer, Keith's body was found in a nearby field. He'd been shot several times and castrated.
They were such loving, caring people. It's hard to imagine how somebody can do something like that.
Joanne quickly established a relationship with the officers working her son's case.
Well, I just about called every day.
The unspeakable brutality of the crimes immediately raised questions about some kind of cult-related attack. Investigators quickly ruled that out.
The murder of the Dardeen family was and still is one of the most gruesome, heartless murders in history. Their family still hopes for some sort of closure, but it is unknown if that day will ever come. The Dardeen family will always be remembered. Rest in peace, Keith, Ruby, Elaine, Peter, and newborn Casey Dardeen, gone but never forgotten. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.